Hi, Alicia.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm feeling pretty good. Ready for this wedding. I can't get it off my mind. I got so much to do.
That's awesome.
But everything's good. I think today's word, as usual, is very appropriate. Somebody might be coming up to join us. Oh, there he is. You guys can't see him on Instagram. Leo, come say hi. Come say hi to everyone. He's like, okay, give me something to do.
Hi, Leo.
This is our little wonderful guard dog. Let me take his collar off so he doesn't make a bunch of noise. All right. So I was just saying, I just feel like today's word is so appropriate.
Yes.
Especially for this time of year, but just with everything we have going on. So I even posted a picture, which was really cool. I'd never done it. That was an iPhone picture. I don't know if you saw it on our stories.
I saw it.
But I took the flower and like pushed it right up against the phone.
Oh, I missed that one. We were talking about the Paris.
Oh, that one too. No, there's one on stories that I just took with my iPhone when I was walking Leo this morning. And it I took the flower and put it up against like the lens, like right here, and then walked and moved with the flower into another flower and focused on it. And it totally relates to today's words, where I was just trying to get rid of all this crazy busyness in the photo.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So before we get into the photography side of it, I want to talk a little bit more about what you're going through, what everyone's going through, and what the word busy or noise means to you, especially right now, because I feel very busy.
Yes. No, me too. I've been feeling like I'm catching up, but it's been very noisy. And even working from home, like shutting the TV off, like in that sense of the word noise, and just trying to focus is important. I went on, actually, this is going to relate really well. I went on a little walk. My aunt and her nieces and nephews, which are my cousin's kids, came by. They stopped by today, and obviously that's like a little bit of, oh crap, I need to stop what I'm doing and then hang out with them. We decided to go for a walk. I had to walk my dogs, but the little girl, we sat down near the lake. We went for a little hike. We sat down near the lake towards the end of our hike, and there was no one there except for us. And she literally said next to me, oh, she's like, it's so quiet. I love this. There's no noise. And I love like that no one's here and we can just be silent. And I was like, you're 5. Like, what is going on? You are like, kids are amazing. And then the other kid was like telling me all about the mushrooms in each tree and the bird nests and everything. I was like, wow, kids are amazing. They probably see and hear through all the noise. We did a little thing where we could find, the furthest noise, that you could hear. And so it was kind of cool to, ground myself with these kids today.
Totally. My cheeks hurt. Sometimes I feel like I'm smiling fakely, but I'm not. I'm so happy that you did that. Like, I love that feeling so much where you're like, oh, I'm supposed to enjoy this and want to be spontaneous, but I really want to get my work done. And then you force yourself to block out and like focus and be totally present in whatever that place may be, whether you think you want to be there or not. And as long as you can be that, as long as you can be present, you will always find something magical. And I truly believe that if you have that intention to begin with, you're setting the tone for other people to connect to you in that way, like those kids who might not, maybe they think that stuff, because they're used to noise so much. It was so obvious to them, right?
They're usually the ones making the most noise.
Right. Imagine if they never had that thought about noise and busyness, simply because they have constantly been in it. They don't even know where it doesn't exist. But like you gave them that opportunity to just step out of their world for a minute too. And whether you knew it or not, she was the one who pointed it out. Like,
yeah. And on our way down the mountain on the hike or whatever, she stopped me. She was holding my hand. She picked up the biggest leaf I've ever seen. I held it with her the whole entire time. She brought it home. I thought it was the cutest thing ever. So yeah, being present, self-aware. Kids are even capable of doing that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's something though that they haven't grasped yet, which is why they're better off than we are as adults, and that is overthinking what other people think. They're not thinking too many steps ahead. They're not in their future. They're totally present. So they're not even worried. I mean, yes, they might understand embarrassment after the fact, but they don't think about the consequences of someone else's reaction to them. They're just going to say what they think. And the more we react in crazy ways, they might not, say anything. So I love that whoever those kids are, they're cool kids because they show up and they probably had such great energy that brings people around them into the present moment because they're just those type of kids. I've been doing these preschool shoots. We have Santa coming up, and it's a hit or miss. You have no idea like what mood they're going to be in, how they're going to react. But I'm entering their world of craziness in a school with all their friends around, and to get them to like sit still for a photo. Some are like going to do exactly what you want, and others are like. But I love that. I can tell you that I have not, I'm going to be honest, I have not actually given myself the time to do those kinds of things. Like, yeah, I go on my walks, but it's just because I have to walk the dog. I haven't given myself the space to not think about a time crunch, right? I have literally been putting so much in the schedule that everything is blocked out and there's no time for just relaxing or breathing. And I wrote down, what were you going to say?
It's hard. I feel like you 90% of the time too, it's like forcing yourself to try and block out everything else and give yourself that time that, even if it's a day, like even an hour in between everything, it's just important.
I do that. And I think that's a good habit that I've just picked up ever since working for myself, which is, okay, if I'm feeling antsy or icky or losing that focus, or, I don't know if you've seen the movie, The Social Dilemma, we can get into it if you want, but, just the idea that
one's a tough one to get into.
What's that?
I said that one's a tough one to get into.
Well, I'll just leave it at this. It is absolute fact that our cell phones and the internet and social media, those of us who are joining on Instagram, it's an attention hog. Like all of these businesses are out there to grab our attention. So what's happened is we've lost our ability to focus on one thing, and it's mind-blowing how quickly it's happened. I'm aware of it, and I still know it's happening. So one of the habits I've forced myself to do ever since working from home, not just because of what's going on this year, but because of being an entrepreneur and setting my own schedule, is I will know when I'm spreading myself too thin or I push myself too long in the day. Or maybe it's just on one little project or email I'm working on. And I'll get up and literally like walk around and stretch and just like move my body, because you do need that break instead of reaching for my phone and scrolling or, something like that. I want to give myself a focused break where I'm actually breathing. I do that throughout the day, but I don't do it enough in bigger chunks of time.
We all get into that pattern of your brain. Actually, it's like a rewiring. Most people would probably wake up, grab their phone, and then go right on to social media things. I actually have been forcing myself not even to touch my phone, just to like shut my damn snooze off and then wake up, and then go about my day. I open my book, I'll read a couple pages, and then do my routine. And then sometimes I forget about my phone unless you have to separate business and, you know, most of the time,
Right.
I say pleasure is what people are going for on those things. Or it's just like, it really is just habit. I
Yeah, it's
actually,
a distraction. It's a distraction, and that's
yeah,
where that's
that's
the busyness that we're talking about here is like,
that noise.
right.
I don't even put the news on. You know what I mean? Like I hate the news. If I want to go search for information, people still have the time to go search for information. But
Exactly.
the news is so noisy. It sounds the same too when you actually have it on in the background and something. I'm like, you know, I can't do it. I actually feel more peaceful and at ease without that negative noise. You know, there's good noise,
Yeah.
but there's also a lot of negative noise.
Well, yeah, and I think the bottom line, I think, is just to be aware of noise in general, wherever you're getting it from, and be aware of how much it's actually taking up in your time, in your day. You know, time is the only thing every single human being has in common. You know, we might not be at the same ladder in the classes and all that kind of stuff around the world, but we all have the same amount of time.
I wish time didn't exist.
You know, I wrote a post a while ago, and I'll have to repost it soon. But it's called um, uh, "It's something something forever. The time does not exist," and it's literally this whole catch-22 about how we wrap our heads around this need to like do things and be busy, and in the end, you end up being in the exact same place you would have been if you had just seen it from a different perspective. You could have taken less steps or whatever it may be. There's this inherent need to be busy, not only as human beings, but more so in today's world in the technology. And if we can just become more aware of it, that's it. Just be aware of it. You don't have to do anything about it. Because as soon as you become aware of it, now you're arguing with yourself. Now you're just talking to yourself about what you're choosing during that time. And it's like, all right, well, if I'm aware of the fact that social media is making all this busyness, or I feel rushed through my day because I'm spreading myself too thin, if I'm aware of it, then that's on you for letting that be that way. And I think that's where having these conversations makes me more aware. Like, one of the things I wrote down is like, you talked about separating business and personal life. I have to decide, and you do too, as an entrepreneur, when to stop working, because the business always needs to be worked.
Stops.
It never stops. It never will until the day I die. So learning your own personal morals and values, and when you start spreading yourself too thin and the busyness actually makes life worse. You know, it's not just getting a priority list done, but you're not getting by and you're not feeling good about life. Then you really know, you know. So I feel like I'm kind of at that point now with planning for the wedding and then closing down for a month and just all the things we have going on. New projects coming up this time, you know, is always busy for photographers and businesses during the holidays. So it's a definite feeling, a struggle of like, how do you prioritize and stop that busyness from taking over, right? Stop all that noise from
Burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, we talk about this as it relates to life, but the coolest thing about when we're telling our stories or trying to figure out what we want our story to be, these words are the same when it comes to visual stories. And you know, we don't want noise or busyness in our photos either. And there's two different ways we can look at this. Yes, I posted this morning about the noise in the pyramid shot. And that's the graininess in our shots. I have some shots we can look at, but there's also just this idea of your photo being too busy, right? Your photo having so much stuff in it, or that you're trying to analyze too much, that the feeling of getting the right shot is busyness and noise in your head, right?
Yeah.
I
kind of came into this thinking both of those things and the life, you know, the living aspect of it. But yeah, too much clutter and too much noise like things in a picture can kind of take away from the story itself.
Yeah. And just like we relate it to having more of a single focus in life, if your photo has a single focus, and it doesn't have to mean a single focal point, but when there's an obvious direction you want your viewer to go to and take in that information first, that becomes the main point, right? The emphasis of your story. So when there's too much going on, your viewer doesn't know where to look, and they're not sure how to actually interpret that story that you're trying to tell. So I have a couple shots that I thought would be funny and semi-appropriate from Christmas last year that I wanted to bring up and just talk about the grain side of photos.
Yeah, which is important.
But if you have any that you can think of when it comes to the busyness, or, you know, while I'm showing my screen, feel free to look for some too. And guys, those of you who are on Instagram watching, you know that you can see these on YouTube after this is over, where you'll actually be able to see the photos that we're comparing and looking at. And those of you who are joining us on these free classes know we do these every week. You can get to them from the same link you clicked on to sign up for this one. And we're getting them up onto our YouTube channel as we do them. So there's about 60 or 70 of them up from the whole year we've been doing them. That being said, we will be taking off the month of December because I'm getting married. So we'll be doing some repeats of our best ones on our YouTube channel, but stay with us for at least the next couple weeks. So let me pull up my screen now and let me know that you can see my screen. Alicia, yeah. Can you see it? Okay, cool. So this is our awesome, infamous Christmas lights, holiday light tour, all down at Lake Eola here in Orlando. It's so much fun. It is amazing what our city does. We call this place the City Beautiful. Those of you who live here in Orlando, you know why. We have so many awesome, beautiful little areas and parks that are just well maintained here. But I love how much effort the city puts into this entire presentation of the lights. And what we were doing for the last couple of years is we were doing photo tours down there and shooting Christmas lights at night. It's not easy, okay? It's not necessarily the hardest thing in the world, but it's not easy because light is coming from so many different directions. So, and it's nighttime. So a lot of times we think that because of those two factors, we don't have enough light, we can't see anything, we're gonna need a higher ISO. And so I was demonstrating for the students this night, last year, about how this higher ISO is gonna just pop your photo. You guys can see, I'll bring it full screen. You guys can just see how everything just pops. There's not really any editing done to this shot. But watch what happens when I zoom in. Oops, my bad. That was not even that exciting, was it? Hold on, I gotta get the raw file so I can zoom in a little bit better. Here we go. And if you guys are watching along and you're interested in knowing what am I doing, what program is this? This is Lightroom, okay? So this is a organization and editing program that we use. And so if you zoom in on this shot, give it a minute to load, but you can already start to see that nasty, nasty noise that is just pixelating the whole image. And we get this from a high ISO, and it shows up mostly in the shadows, right? You're not gonna see it in the brighter parts because there's less information there. Now you see it. You see that, guys? How grainy that looks? So this is one way of thinking of busyness. And if you wanna play with the metaphor on life, what happens is the areas that you're focusing on aren't as sharp. You're not as focused, right? So when you think about being too busy in life, you can't focus nearly as well on one single thing when you're focused on a bunch of things all at once, right? And the same is true when you get all this noise in the photo. Nothing is quite crisp and focused on. And you can really see it down here in the foreground on the people. Everything's a little off. and it doesn't feel like it has great clarity. So just to give you an idea, this was shot on a Nikon D5500. It's a couple years old, this camera, but it is a base model DSLR, and this was 12,800 ISO. So this actually is not bad at all. When you think of some of these older cameras, if you have an older camera, your ISO won't go this high, and even your highest ISOs are probably going to look worse than this one. So just keep in mind, ISO is about the technology, right? The better the technology gets, the better that the camera is capable of reducing all that grain and noise and busyness in our shots. And we can reduce it here in Lightroom as well. I'll just give you a little demo. Where am I? My screen's coming back. So if I'm playing in Lightroom here, I can go down into detail, and actually there's an area called noise reduction, and it will go in and it will soften all of that graininess in your shots. Now it does a pretty good job, but you can see it's affected the Christmas tree as well, which maybe you don't want. So there's some other ways in this program to make it just go into those dark areas in the sky, to just get rid of the noise that way. Let me know if you're interested in learning more about it. I can share it with you later. But noise, guys, we want to avoid it, right? Night shots, and in this case, the better shot would have been if I had a lower ISO and opened my shutter speed longer, and that would have let more light in instead of using ISO to let all that light in. So one thing this shot does have, you'll notice in another way, busyness at the bottom, right? And all the people. But overall, this composition is, even though there's a lot going on in this shot, the composition helps make it less busy, right? It feels simpler and easier to take in simply because it's got that symmetrical look to it. So Alicia, do you have any shots you want to share about noise and busyness?
Yeah, I can share my screen for a sec. I was thinking about the MMA photography, because that is a very low lit, sometimes chaotic, kind of noisy experience.
That's a great idea.
Let's see. Yeah. So, go ahead. What were you saying?
Alicia, tell them a little bit about this, what this is that you do in photography.
So I do something called, MMA photography, and at first I didn't know what the heck I was getting into, but I was photographing, these MMA events, these guys that do mixed martial arts, and then they perform. Sorry, here, let me click on something. And they come out and, they fight each other in the cage, but I have to get them coming out into the arena and kind of getting checked out by, the medical guys, and then getting in the cage with them. So these are kind of more of the places where it gets a little busy. I kind of get into it with them. If I was to zoom in on any of these pictures, which I don't know if I can here, you can actually tell how noisy it is.
Grainy it is. Yeah, and I bet with your new camera, you're going to have some fun not getting.
You know what just happened?
Sorry, your computer's got a mind of its own. But I bet with your new camera, you're going to be getting some awesome shots with less noise in it.
Yes. So, wow, my computer has a mind of its own right now. I don't know what's happening.
Okay. The photo's so cool that it's totally okay.
Oh my God. But so you can tell how kind of busy it starts getting, smoke going, things like that. But if you were to look at, close up, I'm not using any flash, so I have to go to like the lowest aperture and a very high ISO for these types of shots. So no matter what, there's grit and grain.
Yeah, and here's a point where sometimes that's okay because you want that gritty look to your shots. But I get it, because it's funny that you said you didn't know what you were getting into, not just with this crazy, intense sport, but the way you have to think about your settings when there's all this chaotic noise and busyness going on around you. and you have to hone in and focus. But then you got to think, wait a minute, I can't use too low of a shutter speed because they're constantly moving. And maybe the second you go lower on your shutter speed because they're not moving, they go throw a punch or something, and I can only imagine how busy this moment is.
Right, and I'm shooting through things too, which is causing, you can actually see the grain in these. And I actually don't mind it because, fighters in this type of industry is already gritty.
Yeah,
so it's okay for certain photography to be gritty, and it's acceptable. So I don't ever really love noise and grit, but it's fun to actually shoot in this element where it's okay. And you actually have to be accepting of certain photos that you're like, I know it's not completely in focus and that it has this grit, but it's actually a cool photo and you kind of want to use it.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, that's kind of an example of noisy, chaotic, and
and we could relate this to capturing kids, capturing a wedding. In general, the energy level of a photo shoot, we've got to take control of that noise and busyness to get. And even though these are busy shots and there's a lot going on, the way you compose them helps the viewer really look through that shot easier. And take it in. My eye goes right to his face, locked on that elbow, right?
Right.
So composition plays a big part into how you can reduce the busyness of a shot by simply moving things around. If I'll end with this, guys, if you're watching on Instagram, go look at my last thing I just posted on stories. And look at how I use that flower, like I was talking about at the beginning here, to make the photo less busy with my garden. So I pulled in a flower and literally blocked like a quarter of the frame. So it just simplified the scene. So busyness, we don't always love it, right? But if you can simplify things in your life, prioritize, and also when you're out shooting and practicing, you are absolutely going to make a more impactful story, a more powerful story. What's the saying? Keep it simple, stupid, kiss?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
as my dad says, use that bump 3 feet above your ass. Let's keep it simple.
That's awesome. That's great. So I really need to remember this word this week, especially the next couple weeks, getting ready for all the big plans we have going on. And, the next few words we have coming up, guys, are really pertinent and really important to what I'm sure a lot of us are going on during this time of year, during the holiday season and the craziness. So join us next week. We'll be here at 4:00 on Wednesday. I'll see you there, Alicia.
Yeah.
I'll see everyone on Instagram next week. And don't forget, you can check these out on YouTube later. So we'll see you guys.
Right, bye, everybody.
Oh, I forgot. Wait.
It's okay.
Bye.